ॐ ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। हरि ओम जय गुरुदेव। ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ नवमोऽध्यायः राजविद्या राजगुह्ययोगो नाम। श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात्। राजविद्या राजगुह्यं पवित्रमिदमुत्तमं प्रत्यक्षावगमं धर्म्यं सुसुखं कर्तुमव्ययम्। अश्रद्धाना पुरुषा धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि। मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः। यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायु सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय। सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकां कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम्। प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नमवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात्। न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय। उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम्। हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय jagat dviparivartate. So we have seen verse fifth, this browse the fourth one, and Maya tatam sarvam jagadavyatamurtina matstha sarvabhutani nachaham teshvah. This entire world is pervaded by me. Form cannot be objectified. All beings have their being in me and I am not based in them. Maya jagadavyatamurtina tatam idam sarvam. Matsthani sarvabhutani. Existence is not an attribute. Does the Lord have adhara, adheya connection with the world? A connection can only be between two things that are Satya. If Atma is Satya, and if there is any other Atma which is equally Satya, then we can say that one Atma is connected to the other Atma, that one is based upon other, that one depends upon the other, but there is no second Atma at all. If there were, you should be able to recognize it. But anything you can recognize is an object of Atma and not Atma. That is because Atma is consciousness which recognizes everything. There is only one Atma which from its own standpoint is non-dual. It is pure Chaitanya Atma. Because Atma is not connected to anything, Bhagavan says, Nacha matsthani bhutani pashya me yogamaishwaram bhuta brunna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And the beings exist in me. To get this Aishwara connection of mind to the Jagat, myself is the creator of the beings, the sustainer of the beings, and yet is not residing in beings. I will repeat what we learned today. Bhagavan said, all beings have their being in me. Matsthani sarva bhutani. Now he says, and the beings do not exist in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani. This removes any possible notion of Bhagavan being the adhara of all these beings. If Atma is only one and everything is dependent upon Atma, there is duality and Bhagavan would be a huge samsari, because a samsari, after all, is someone with a number of dependents. To rule these out, he completely reverses his language and says all these beings and things do not exist in me. It is like the clay saying, the pot exists in me. Then after thinking it over saying, in fact, the pot does not exist in me. All that is in me is clay. I exist in my own right and do not depend upon the pot. Their clay is Satya. Anything else has no independent existence. It is only Nama Rupa. Similarly, every thought is me, but in me there is only Chaitanya. If you turn your vision towards the Atma, there is no thought there. And for that, you need not do anything. When one thought has gone and another is yet to come, What obtains is consciousness, the Atma, independent of a thought, independent of the whole Jagat. That consciousness is the nature of the Atma and its Swarupa. There are no beings. Having said this, he says something more to make it clear that there is no contradiction in what he has just said. He says, Pashya me yogam aishwaram. Pashya means look, understand. The word Aishwaram is an adjective to the word yoga and means that which belongs to Ishvara. Yoga here means connection. The Lord says, look at my connection with the Jagat. Pashyame yogam Aishwaram. This is the yoga connection of the cause, Paramatma, with the effect, the Jagat. In any cause-effect relationship, the cause is independent of the effect, while the effect depends upon the cause. This is the reality from the standpoint of cause-effect, Karana Karya. If you go one step further and look at the cause, Karana, is there an effect, Karya? You find that all that is there is only the Karana because the Karya is nothing but the Karana in another form. Therefore, the Lord says that the entire Jagat is nothing but Himself. The cause of the entire Jagat is Ishvara, and therefore it is all Ishvara's glory. Therefore, he says, Pashyame yogam Aishwaram. Very beautiful.
Bela, can you repeat this para one more time?
Yeah, sure.
And just wanted to say, 1 second, the beautiful, I think the one before this, when he says, the thought is in me. I am in the thought, but the thought is not in me, right? That is what he says about the thought.
Correct.
Can you read from that part onwards?
Yeah. I will read from the beginning. Yeah. It's very, very beautiful. Yeah. First, Bhagwan said, all beings have their being in me, matsthani sarva bhutani. Now he says, and the beings do not exist in me, nacha matsthani bhutani. This removes any possible notion of Bhagavan being the adhara of all these beings. If Atma is only one and everything is dependent upon Atma, there is duality. And Bhagavan would be a huge samsari because a samsari, after all, is someone with a number of dependents. To rule this out, he completely reverses his language and says, all these beings and things do not exist in me. It is like the clay saying, the pot exists in me. Then, after thinking it over, saying, in fact, the pot does not exist in me. All that is in me is clay. I exist in my own right and do not depend upon the pot. Their clay is Satya. Anything else has no independent existence. It is only Nama Rupa.
Can you please read that para again? Because
Yeah.
the one that
Yeah.
that just one more time, whatever you've read just now.
Yeah.
A little slowly, huh?
Yeah. The meaning of the verse I read first, and the beings do not exist in me. There is a breaking of voice. And the beings do not exist in me. Look at the Ishvara connection of mind to the Jagat. Myself is the creator of the beings, the sustainer of the beings. The Jagat is not residing in the beings. First, Bhagavan said, all beings have their being in me, Matsthani Sarva Bhutani. Now he says, and the beings do not exist in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani. This removes any possible notion of Bhagavan being the Adhara of all these beings. If Atma is only one and everything is dependent upon Atma, there is duality, and Bhagavan would be a huge samsari, because a samsari, after all, is someone with a number of dependents. To rule this out, he completely reverses his language and says, all these beings and things do not exist in me. It is like the clay saying, the pot exists in me. Then, after thinking it over, saying, in fact, the pot does not exist in me. All that is in me is clay. I exist in my own right and do not depend upon the pot. Their clay is Satya. Anything else has no independent existence. It is only Nama Rupa. If Bhagwan is also in us, then he will also be one of the samsari who will be having all dukkha and sukha. But it is not like that. Correct? So he is not Adhara. He is not in us. That is what is my little understanding.
Can we just read that? First, Bhagwan said, all beings have their being in me.
Yes.
Matsani sarva bhutani. And now he says, and the beings do not exist in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani. This removes any possible notion of Bhagavan being the Adhara of all these bhutas. What is the meaning of Adhara he's given there?
It was in the previous one. It is like a subtraction.
Substratum.
Just a minute, huh? Adhara.
That paragraph was what? Ishvara is not Adhara. Or
Bhagavan has covered this by saying he is Avyakta Murti. Shankara states the significance of this. An object which has a form is something that can be connected to another object. There is the possibility of basis-based Adhara Adheya connection. The dish, for example, is on the table and the table is on the ground. Since each of these has a form, it can be the basis, Adhara, for another object which has a form, the Adeya.
Yeah. And can we read the paragraph after that as well?
Yeah. Now let us consider the relationship between the space and an object which has a form. It can be the earth, it can be all the planets. All are based upon, accommodated in space, except space itself. But space also exists in me, consciousness, which has no form whatsoever. If all things exist in space and space itself exists in me, then I have no location. If this is so, what kind of basis-based connection is there? With no location, there is no Adhara Adeya, basis-based difference. I am self-existent and everything is based upon me. Those who do not understand this fact may say that the Atma is located in the Buddhi. The Buddhi is the place where you recognize the Atma, that is, as consciousness. It manifests there. But that does not mean that the Atma is located there. Atma is that by which everything is pervaded, including your Buddhi. Maya tatamidam sarvam. Buddhi, after all, is a vritti, and every vritti is nothing but Chaitanya Atma. A pot vritti is consciousness plus the name and the form pot. Every vritti depends upon Chaitanya Atma, like how the waves depend entirely upon water. But Chaitanya Atma has no form that can be located anywhere. So it is not an object based upon something else. It is a vastu that has no form and has no connection with anything else. So it is not possible for it to be adheya based upon something else. It is that in which everything is based. Therefore, Shankara says the nature of Atma is such that it has no connection whatsoever. Like the water has no connection with the wave, between Satya and Mithya, there is no connection at all. Mithya does not exist apart from Satya. One is Adhisthana, the other is a superimposition. Even the Adhara, Adheya difference is not there. The Jagat is non separate from me, yet I am independent of the Jagat because one is Satya, the other is Mithya. A connection can only be between two things that are Satya. If Atma is Satya, and if there is any other Atma which is equally Satya, then we can say that one Atma is connected to the other Atma, that one is based upon the other, that one depends upon the other. But there is no second Atma at all. If there were, you should be able to recognize it. But anything you can recognize is an object of Atma and not Atma. That is because Atma is consciousness which recognizes everything. There is only one Atma, which from its own standpoint is non-dual. It is pure Chaitanya Atma. But Atma is not connected to anything. Bhagavan says, न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थो mamatma bhuta bhavanah. And the beings do not exist in me. Look at this Aishwara connection of mind to the Jagat. Myself is the creator of the beings, the sustainer of the beings, and yet is not residing in the beings. First, Bhagavan said, all beings have their being in me. Matsthani sarva bhutani. Now he says, and the beings do not exist in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani. This removes any possible notion of Bhagavan being the adhara of all these beings. If Atma is only one and everything is dependent upon Atma, there is duality and Bhagavan would be a huge samsari because a samsari, after all, is someone with a number of dependents. To rule this out, he completely reverses his language and says, all these beings and things do not exist in me. It is like the clay saying, the pot exists in me. Then, after thinking it over, saying, in fact, the pot does not exist in me. All that is in me is clay. I exist in my own right and do not depend upon the pot. Their clay is Satya. Anything else has no independent existence. It is only Nama Rupa. The clay does not depend upon the pot's existence. It has its own self-effulgent existence. Should I go forward or I should repeat from the third verse onwards again? Kindly let me know if it is not getting clear because it is very, very important and very beautiful.
Only thing is here, he says Ishvara is the basis, but the clarity that is required is this adhara. Adhishtana, adhara, adheya. There are three different terms there. Adheya is the object that is based on it. I'm still not very clear about this adhara. Adhara, adhishtana, I think is the substratum, is the basis. But usually adhara is what I understand is something that is the basis. So that clarity is not there. If someone can throw
the
light
same
on that.
thing, Adhara as well as Adhisthana is both meaning the basis, right? I mean, it is a little like a paradox, like as you said, the earlier he said Mastani Sarva Bhutani, here it says Nacha Mastani Bhutani. So my only thinking is like we want to go further to read the complete and see what exactly they're trying to say here, because
But
he
go
says,
go.
yeah, all beings exist in me, meaning the being doesn't exist, like he's pervading all beings. That was the understanding earlier, so that's what the difference I was trying to look up to see what that means, like where he noted this pot and clay example. The clay says the pot exists in me, like it's saying pot exists in me, like all beings exist in me, things do not. So that's the same thing, like sorry, in fact the pot does not exist in me, all that is in me is clay. So I'm not sure what exactly they are equating to. It sounds like it's more related to atma, but that's what I understood so far. um, and this Aishvara connection of mind to the Jagat, again here they totally new with Aishwaram Yogam, that which belongs to Ishvara connecting to the Jagat. So what is belonging to Ishvara, so that's why I wanted to read completely to be before I could, because this is totally all the words are new, the way it is said here.
If
But
everyone agrees, may I repeat the verse fourth again? May I read because it is the base. This fourth and fifth, they are interconnected. Bhagwan has already said in the fourth shloka. So, may I read this once again
yeah, you
for
can
more
read it
clarity,
again.
please?
The example given of the clay and the pot is very clear. The clay, it is like the clay saying the pot is in me, and but then actually it is not. It is not, because it is only satya. There is only clay. Pot is only nama rupa. That example was okay, but then there is this still this. There is not much. It's not total clarity yet. I think it's a
The
good
only,
idea to read.
yeah, the thing only I can think of is that here that Ishvara means that Maya Ishvara is the creating all beings. That not exactly all beings is within Bhagavan. So he say, but only way we read it always, it's pervading. The Bhagavan pervades all beings in this Satchit, in the it's not a form actually, what we call, we name the Satchit Ananda. So without him this existence consciousness is not there. So that is the only thing so far we read, like eastness and all that in the previous one. So anyway, if you want to go ahead and read it, that's not a problem.
Sometimes we ask question like this, now, what is the Aadhar on which you are speaking, means किस आधार पे आप ये बोल रहे हैं, तो वो आधार, ऐसे मुझे लगता है वो मीनिंग होगा.
Yeah.
I'm just,
You can read chapter 4 and 5 again.
yeah. Okay, so having drawn Arjuna's attention, Lord Krishna begins the topic of this chapter in a very big way. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. This entire world is pervaded by me, whose form cannot be objectified. All beings have their being in me, and I am not based in them. I repeat, this entire world is pervaded by me, whose form cannot be objectified. All beings have their being in me, and I am not based in them. It is important to note here that in this and the following verses, the word Bhuta.
Bella, sorry, I'm interrupting. Can you
Yeah.
just slow the pace of your reading?
Oh,
Do it a
sure.
little more slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. It is important to note that in this and the following verses, the word Bhuta, being, is used in the sense of Jiva. The word Bhuta also covers the entire world, Jagat. When it is said that Jiva is created, sustained, and destroyed, one should know that by Jiva is meant an embodied being. The Jiva, being non-separate from Atma, is never created or sustained or destroyed. But the subtle and physical bodies, born of subtle and gross elements, are created, sustained, and destroyed. So, for the Jiva, creation, sustenance, and destruction are only with reference to these bodies. At the destruction of the entire Jagat, which includes all bodies of all Jivas as well as the Jagat become unmanifest. From this unmanifest state, when all these become manifest, that manifestation is called creation. As long as he does not recognize his identity with Ishvara, this process of manifestation and unmanifestation continues for the Jiva. Maya jagadavyakta murtina tatam idam sarvam. The Lord says, this entire world is pervaded by me. There is an adjective to me, avyakta murtina. A form or the truth of a given thing is called murti. Avyakta murti is a form that is beyond objectification. Please remember this. A form or the truth of a given thing is called murti. Avyakta murti is a form that is beyond objectification. Something that cannot be objectified may be hastily construed as non-existent, so that there will be no such problem. Bhagwan has used the word murti. Avyakta murti is the one who exists and is available for appreciation. That is me, and by that me, this entire creation is pervaded. It is not Krishna's body that is pervading everything, but his real nature, Parobhava. When Krishna says here, Maya, by me, he uses the first person. and that refers to the real being, Sat Chit Ananda. By me, that is Brahman, which is Sat Chit Ananda in the form of existence, consciousness, not limited by time, space, or any object. This entire world is pervaded Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagat. Was there the breaking of voice? If you want me to repeat, please let me know because there are notification. Last line I will read. By me, that is Brahman, which is Sat Chit Ananda, in the form of existence, consciousness, not limited by time, space, or any object. This entire world pervaded Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagata. Matsthani Sarvabhutani. Things that are born are called bhutas. Because they are born, they are subject to change. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apah, Prithvi are all bhutas. Then out of these bhutas, a number of systems, lokas, were born. And in any loka, there are many forms of physical bodies, each with their own subtle body, all made of the five elements, the Panchabhutas, according to our five elemental model. Out of these five bhutas, subtle and gross, come all the lokas and the embodied beings within them. Together, they are called Sarva Bhutani. Even the Ahankara is included in these bhutas. All thoughts are created and have their being in one uncreated Atma. Therefore, Krishna says, Matsthani Sarva Bhutani. All beings have their being in me. And without me, there will be no being at all. Shankara says, anything without an existential status is not available for empirical transaction. Nahi niratmakam kinchit bhutam vyavaharaya avakalpate. I repeat, nahi niratmakam kinchit bhutam vyavaharaya avakalpate. He introduces this sentence to illustrate an important point. All beings, upon inquiry, prove to be mithya. Whenever you analyze any object, it is reduced to something else and is therefore purely nama rupa. If we stop here, there is only a void, shunya. If at the bottom of everything there is shunya, there will be no transaction, vyavahara at all. But because there is one thing that is, everything is understood as existence, existent. Space is, time is, everything is. But then one may argue there are certain things which we understand as non-existent, like the rabbit's horn. Even so, the rabbit is existent, only the horn is non-existent. And even though the rabbit's horn is non-existent, how do you know of the non-existence of the rabbit's horn? This is very important to note. To know this, there must be a person who knows. That person knows aham asmi, I am. Then he uses a means of knowledge to know that rabbits do not have horns. That rabbits have no horns is purely a piece of knowledge and To acquire that, there must be a means of knowledge. You cannot say it is perception because eyes can capture only form and color, not non-existence. They detect presence, not absence.
Can you repeat that again? There was some break. The last
Yeah.
sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. You cannot say it is perception because eyes can capture only form and color, not non-existence. They detect presence, not absence. So the means of knowledge is not perception. Then how do you know that the rabbit's horn does not exist? It is not inference because all inference is based on perception. Nor is it a presumption. You do not arrive at the fact that rabbits do not have horns by presuming it from the fact that rabbits never hit you with their horns. You do not conclude rabbits do not hit me with their horns, therefore they do not have horns. It is not a knowledge born of perception or inference or presumption, but an independent means of knowledge called anupalabdhi, a negative means of knowledge based upon the knowledge you have. You know what a rabbit is like, but you don't really see the absence of the horn. When you question whether a rabbit has horns, you determine that it does not have horns. That is arrived at by anupalabdhi, a means of knowledge employed by the person who is existent. He uses a means of knowledge to determine the fact that the rabbit has no horn. But the fact is, and the person who knows is, exists. So that easiness he's talking about. Generally, this existence is considered an attribute of the object. We say, for example, this pot is existent. Here, existence becomes an attribute which distinguishes this pot from an absent or a destroyed pot. This existent pot you will later call a destroyed pot. So when you say this is an existent pot, existent is used as an opposite to non-existence or destruction. Since there is such a thing as an absent or a destroyed pot, you can say this is an existent pot. The knowledge that you have of existence is always opposed to non-existence. The fact that it exists only means that it is not yet destroyed. This is how our buddhi grasps existence. And because of that, it is always an attribute imputed to an object. Existence is not an attribute. Vedanta just reverses this orientation. In fact, its whole intent is only to dismiss this orientation. It says existence is not an attribute. It is unlike anything that we know. To this existence, it is the objects that are so-called attributes. Let us look at it in a simple form. Suppose I say this is a gold chain. Here, the gold becomes the attribute, the chain, the substantive. This is not a mere linguistic orientation. It reflects an orientation in my vision, my way of looking at the world and myself. It means that I see myself as a mortal being who is existent now, subject to aging, to time, and is going to be destroyed one day. All these are involved in this simple statement. In Vedanta, we reverse this vision. If you say gold chain, chain has the status of a substantive and the gold an attribute. Do you add some gold to the existent chain? If you do, it is a gold plated chain, not a gold chain. I am talking of a gold chain. In fact, all that is there is gold. Chain being purely a nama rupa. This is an entirely different vision. The gold becomes existent, satya, and the chain becomes nama rupa, seemingly added to gold. Why seemingly? Any real addition should bring an addition to the gold. But here I find the chain's appearance does not bring any addition or change to the gold. The gold substance, the swarupa, its weight and other properties remain the same. Even with the appearance of the chain, the gold retains its own nature. So we say the appearance of the chain is a kind of addition, a seeming creation. We cannot totally deny a creation because we see the chain. Even so, it is only a seeming creation because there is no beginning of a substantive. The gold has been, the gold is, and gold will be. There is no real chain at all. It is nothing but an incidental nama rupa attributed to the gold. Therefore, it is a sort of addition to the gold. If the gold could talk, it would say, all these golden ornaments, the gold chain, the gold bangle, gold ring, gold earring, gold nose ring, gold ring, all of them have their being in me. The existence of the chain is entirely dependent upon the gold. Therefore, in Vedantic language, we will not say gold chain, but chainy gold. I have to completely change my language just to express my vision. In fact, it is not really the language we need to change, but our vision. When I say gold chain, I must know that what I am saying is that the chain is gold. I repeat, there is a breaking of voice. When I say gold chain, I must know that what I am saying is that the chain is gold. Similarly, if we say this entire creation is Ishvara, it means the creation is the attribute. Ishvara is the substantive vastu. Paramatma is Satya, and the entire creation is nothing but Nama Rupa. Therefore, Krishna says, Matsthani Sarva Bhutani. All beings are in that existence, which is I, the Atma. Sarva Bhutas include my body, my senses, all that I know, my ahankara, and even ignorance. Ignorance is. That is Atma, consciousness. The thought is. The knower is. Seer is. Hearer is. Thinker is. Thinking is. Emotion is. Memory is, this is, that is, then anything that you say that is Atma. And that is, which is qualified by whatever you say, is itself unqualified. I repeat, then anything that you say that is Atma, and that is, which is qualified by whatever you say, is itself unqualified. That is Atma. And therefore, the statement Matsthani Sarva Bhutani is meaningful. Now it is clear what was meant by Maya Tatamidam Sarvam. Everything is pervaded by me. It means nothing is away from me. In anything that consciousness is the Atma. In any piece of knowledge, there is consciousness involved. And that consciousness is Sat Chit Ananda Atma. And it is avyakta because it is not an object. The means of knowledge we have can only bring the objects to light. But the object is, and that is yourself. This is something we appreciate not in the way we are used to, because the one who appreciates is also pervaded by the Atma, as is the knowledge of the object and the object itself. The Atma is self-evident, not an object that is to be known. First, the Lord said, by me all this is pervaded. Maya tatamidam sarvam. This means that the Atma is in every being. Next, by saying, all beings are in me. Matsthani sarva bhutani. He completely changes the situation. In this particular expression, there is a potential problem. Does the Lord have Adhara, Adheya, connection with the world? There is a common notion that in every heart there is a divine spark. The Atma
Repeat
is
that,
looked
Leila.
upon.
Repeat that sentence. There is some breakage there.
Yeah. Does the Lord have Adhara, Adheya connection with the world? There is a common notion that in every heart there is a divine spark. The Atma is looked upon as something located in the buddhi of every being. According to this, the buddhi can be construed as the basis, the Atma as the based, with a basis-based relationship between the buddhi and the Atma. I repeat, according to this, the buddhi can be construed as the basis, the Atma as the based, with a basis-based relationship between the buddhi and the Atma. To eliminate any such notion, Bhagavan says, Nacha aham teshu avasthitaha. While all of them have their being in me, I am not in any of them. We have hundreds of paradoxes like this. The meaning is simple. All of them are in me, but because you may think that I am located in them, I say that I am not. They are all located in me in the sense that I am the Sat of all things, like gold is the Sat of all things, golden. In every gold chain, there is gold. Gold is not located in the chain. The chain is gold. The gold does not exist in chain in the sense that it does not depend on the chain with only the Nagarupa. The very existence of the chain is because of the gold. If the chain is, the isness is nothing but the isness of the gold. Therefore, gold does not exist in chain, whereas the chain exists in gold. One is Satya, the other Mithya. Satya does not exist depending upon Mithya, but Mithya cannot exist without Satya. That is the whole intent here. So all of them exist in me, Madsthani, Sarva Bhutani, but I do not remain located in any one of them. Nacha aham teshu avasthitah. I becomes the basis, the adhara of everything. But I am not adheya, based upon them, because they are mithya. I am the Satya, the truth of all of them. They have their being in me, but I do not have my being in them. I am not dependent upon them for my existence, while they depend entirely upon me for their existence. One may argue that it is like the situation of a king. The citizens depend entirely upon the king, but he does not depend upon the citizens. One is independent, the other dependent. Similarly, if all the worlds are dependent upon you and you are not dependent upon them, there is still a difference between the world and you. You have become the Adhara and the world is the Adheya. Bhagwan has covered this
Can you
by...
repeat that sentence again, those last two sentences?
Yeah, I think there is too much of breaking of voice. I can continue sharing if it is too much of breaking of voice, no? Kindly take over because it is... I will repeat the last paragraph. So all of them exist in me, Matsthani Sarva Bhutani, but I do not remain located in any one of them. Nacha aham teshu avasthitah. I becomes the basis, the adhara of everything. But I am not adheya, based upon them, because they are mithya. I am the Satya, the truth of all of them. They have their being in me, but I do not have my being in them. I am not dependent upon them for my existence. Why? They depend entirely upon me for their existence. One may argue that it is like the situation of a king. The citizens depend entirely upon the king, but he does not depend upon the citizens. One is independent, the other dependent. Similarly, if all the worlds are dependent upon you and you are not dependent upon them, there is still a difference between the world and you. You have become the Adhara and the world is the Adheya. Bhagavan answered this by saying that he is avyakta adi. Shankara states the significance of this. Object which has a form is something that can be connected to another object. There is the possibility a basis-based Adhara Adheya connection. The dish, for example, is on the table and the table is on the ground. Since each of these has a form, it can be the basis, Adhara, for another object which has a form. the Adheya. Now let us consider the relationship between space and an object which has a form. It can be the earth, it can be all the planets. All are based upon, accommodated in space, except space itself. But space also exists in me, consciousness, which has no form whatsoever. If all things exist in space and space itself exists in me, then I have no location. If this is so, what kind of basis based connection is there? With no location, there is no Adhar Adheya, basis based difference. I am self existent and everything is based upon me. Those who do not understand this fact may say that the Atma is located in the Buddhi. The Buddhi is the place where you recognize the Atma, that is, as consciousness, it manifests there. But that does not mean that the Atma is located there. Atma is that by which everything is pervaded, including your buddhi. Maya tatam idam sarvam. Buddhi, after all, is a vritti, and every vritti is nothing but Chaitanya Atma. A pot vritti is consciousness plus the name and form pot. Every vritti depends upon Chaitanya Atma, like how the waves depend entirely upon water. But Chaitanya Atma has no form that can be located anywhere. So it is not an object based upon something else. It is a vastu that has no form and has no connection with anything else. So it is not possible for it to be adheya, based upon something else. It is that in which everything is based. Therefore, Shankara says the nature of Atma is such that it has no connection whatsoever. Like the water has no connection with the wave. Between Satya and Mithya, there is no connection at all. Mithya does not exist apart from Satya. One is Adhisthana, the other is a superimposition. Even the Adhara Adheya difference is not there. The Jagat is non-separate from me. Yet I am independent of the Jagat because one is Satya, the other is Mithya. A connection can only be between two things that are Satya. If Atma is Satya and if there is any other Atma which is equally Satya, then we can say that one Atma is connected to the other Atma, that one is based upon other, that one depends upon the other. But there is no second Atma at all. If there were, you should be able to recognize it. But anything you can recognize is an object of Atma and not Atma. That is because Atma is consciousness which recognizes everything. There is only one Atma which from its own standpoint is non-dual. It is pure Chaitanya Atma. May I stop here? I once again read the same shloka which I read. It is very, very beautiful. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः. This entire world is pervaded by me, whose form cannot be objectified. All beings have their being in me, and I am not based in them. We will just close our eyes and then we can share our takeaways from today.
Jai Gurudev. The only thing that exists is Satya. That was quite evident by that isness. So when you keep going back and analyzing the basis of any object that we see, like for instance a pot, you go on asking what is the pot is. Then you break the pot, clay is. When you break the clay, when you further divide the clay, you go on and on and on till you get to the minutest particles, whatever. So that isness is what is the Satya, that is the existence. That is on one side. So the isness is what pervades through, in and through the creation. That is the Atma. That is on one side. On the other side, when you look at the example of the pot is on the table and the table is on the ground, the table becomes the adhara for the pot because the pot is on the table, and then the ground becomes the adhara for the table is on the ground. Similarly, if you say Atma is in the buddhi, then what happens? The buddhi becomes the adhara for the Atma, which is not true. The buddhi is in the Atma. The buddhi is because of the Atma. The Atma is not in the buddhi. Which is why he says, Sarvabhutani, no, what was that? Shloka is, Matsthani Sarvabhutani Nachaham Teshvavastitaha. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina Matsthani Sarvabhutani Nachaham Teshu Avastitaha. So the entire world is pervaded by me. That isness is there in entire world. All beings are in me, including all the anatma that we see, all the anatma, including the body, mind, intellect, memory, ego, all of that is in me, in that atma, and I am not based in them. I am not in them. It's like I am not in the buddhi, I am not in the mind, I am not in the body. Like even the pot is on the table is on the ground. That way the Atma is not in any of this. Although the Atma pervades in and through every being. So the only basis, the only adhara, the only adhishtana for everything in the world is that isness, that Satya, which is the Swarupa of Atma. Yeah. That is what my takeaway is. Anyone else also, please share. There is therefore the Atma is not located anywhere. You cannot fixate a location for Atma. That is why he says Avyakta Murtina. It is
And
that.
also, there is no second Atma, as you mentioned. So there's only one Atma. So Atma is the consciousness. Then it becomes one whole big Atma that is everywhere. So that's how, so without it, nothing exists. So that becomes, Sat Chit Ananda, that it becomes Sat Chit Ananda by itself. So then, there, I don't know that next, the one it said na Mastani Bhuta Sarva Bhutani, I think only when you read it, it will tell you more. Yeah, actually they said something about reverse what it said. So I was kind of curious about that. But here, remember we were talking about, what this, as we are seeing individual. So we think Atma exists in every one of us. So we think it is kind of separate thing, but it's not. It is all one whole Atma, like one whole consciousness. It's a space kind of. That's what I understood with this one. So it exists in every, the Atma is in every being. So that was it said, right? Like all beings in me, but then I'm not in them. So he is independent existence of that particular 100 Nisna Vyaktamurtina. That is not, what was the last sentence you said? Avastitaha. Na chaham avastitaha. Yeah. Also, there is one paradox it mentioned, was existence is an attribute. And then they also brought it again, it's not an attribute as per Vedanta. Because when it's related to an object, it becomes an attribute. Like for us, like when we see things, it's there, then we say, oh, it exists there. But then if it's not there, like the rabbit horn and no horn, that example. And whereas the Atma, even though you cannot see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It does exist. So that's the attribute I thought I um, bring it up. I don't know if you have anything to say. I hope I understood correctly.
Anyone else wants to share?
Hariom, I just want to add that asangoham, yesterday what we saw, even our buddhi is mithya and is not connected to that satya, which is Satchit Ananda Swarupa.
Here I have a little bit doubt that buddhi is mithya when it is identifying with the outer world through the five senses, acknowledging the all fancies of the.
I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I wanted to know. Here we are saying that buddhi is also mithya because it is a part of the maya and dependent on the Pancha Mahabhutas. That is why if something happens with the memory chip, then all your reading, whatever we are going through, that will go away. No, like if we can recall it, if the chip becomes okay, then we can recall it. Otherwise, like Alzheimer people, and their memory chip is disturbed. So they are not able to recall all the things. So if somebody has gone through this knowledge intellectually, and if the memory chip is disturbed, then all these things will get because actually that jiva is not still established into the Satchidanand experience anubhuti wise. So when the buddhi is associated with these panchamahabhutas and the maya through the five senses and doing all the jobs of judging and everything, what is right, wrong, and everything, till that time it is like. But when it becomes a parishuddha buddhi, when it gets associated and established into the self, then that parishuddha buddhi only gives rise to the um, aparokshanubhuti. Am I right? I don't know. Jai Gurudev. Ramaraji, if you can help.
Yeah, that is there. No, only in a clean buddhi, only in a when your antakarana is shuddh and it is steady. Only in that state can this recognition of this knowledge happen. That is one. Second, we've learned earlier that this is not a matter of the memory. Even if a person has had a jnani, that he is talking of a jnani, who is a jivan mukta, he, in spite of him going through, say, a thrombosis or a stroke or Alzheimer's, for instance, this knowledge will not leave him. It will remain. It is not something that is dependent on the memory. That is the second part. Now, the third one is with respect to all of us, like sadhaks, who, for instance, we are reading all of this. God forbid, some of us, if, for instance, I get through a stroke or something and my memory of whatever I have learned, I'm not able to retrieve. But the samskara that is being put in, that will remain. And that will ensure that, supposing I don't achieve Jivan Mukti in this Janma, it will take me forward in the next Janma and ensure that there is a birth that is conducive for further evolution. So nothing of what we're doing will go waste. That is one. That is what Krishna assures Arjuna. I think it's in the 6th chapter only. He assures him. When he asks what happens if a person dies without attaining moksha, this is what Krishna assures him. So, But once you've attained it, there is no question of losing it. Whether you have Alzheimer's or otherwise, that is only at the level of the buddhi again. Because this knowledge is beyond that, that will not leave you, leave the person. I'm not sure whether I was able to clarify your question.
Yes, yes, yes. Very much clarity has dawned. But still, that buddhi thing, no, which is a part of the Maya. Means, not it is not pure like Satchidanand. So that thing is little bit, unless until that Antakaran Shuddhi, you have given all the points very clearly. And ultimately the Antakaran Shuddhi and that Parishuddha Buddhi, in Parishuddha Buddhi only, this ultimate knowledge will dawn. Am I right?
Correct. Which is true.
And then Buddhi also gets dissolved, like how the mind gets dissolved. Buddhi also dissolves into the.
There is
It
nothing
has
that
no any
remains.
identity as such. Then.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, even the subtle body and the gross body, all of it is the matter, right? So it's part of the matter. So it's all going to be,
Dissolved.
dissolved. But then again, if somebody not like, say, we only partially acquire this knowledge, but then something happens, then that the subtle body and that causal body is carried out to the next, excuse me, next birth, I think. But then when the jnani becomes Jivan Mukta in this life, then everything resolves here, because there is no more of that Karyapala and things like that. He holds everything dissolves.
Yeah. Shall we go? We have 5 minutes. We'll go to the 6th chapter.
Can you explain the sentence? Mithya cannot exist without Satya.
Yeah. For instance, pot and clay, no? Can the pot exist without the clay? Clay is Satya over there, right?
Yeah.
There is no pot. When you have only a lump of clay, is there a pot that is there? No.
No.
So only out of this clay can you actually make a pot. So which is Satya? Which is what is existent? Satya is the clay is existent there. Pot is only made out of clay. It is not there initially. You don't have pot as Satya. On the other hand, if you take it the other way, can you say pot is, the example of the gold and the chain? So the clay is in every aspect of the pot. So that is the Satya, that is that which exists. Because when you break the pot, the clay still is. So therefore the pot is Mithya, the pot is dependent upon Satya, which is clay. Same thing goes with the gold and the chain and all those ornaments that you make out of gold. The gold is the Satya, and all the ornaments, it could be a chain, ring, whatever, bangle, they're not there. No, initially are they there? They're not there. They're only created out of the Satya, which is called gold. So therefore, Mithya has its dependence on Satya and not vice versa.
Okay.
So
every being is here, but they are Mithya.
every
Only
being
substance
created,
is Satya. Yeah.
Yes.
That substance is Satya.
Correct.
That existence is Satya. Okay.
Like the wave and the water, ocean and the water and the wave. The wave is created, isn't it? Created, it has its existence for a few seconds and then it dissolves. Similarly, but what is running in and through the wave is Satya, which is the water. Can the wave exist without the water? It cannot. It is totally dependent on the water. But water can exist without the wave. There may not be, when there is low tide and the ocean is still, water is still there. There may not be waves, but then that does not mean the water does not exist. The water exists. Now, all of us, the whole Jagat, like the wave, it's created, it sustains for a while, and it dissolves.
So how can we use the words here, Adhar, Adheya, and what a third one is Adheya?
Adheya. Adheya is the one, the object that is based upon something. So here...
So water wave is based on the water. Ocean. Ocean. Okay.
The wave is the Adheya. Adhara is the water.
Okay.
Similarly, Atma is the Adhara and the whole Jagat and everything is the Adheya, and not vice versa. That is why he says, Sarva Bhutani,
Atman.
Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam, Sarva Bhutani Chatmani. And I am there in everything, but they are not. No, every being is in me, but I am not in them.
Okay.
It is like saying the wave is in the water, correct?
Correct.
The water is not in the wave. That is what is the little click over there. The water is not dependent on the wave. When you say water is not in the wave, it means the water is not dependent on the wave. The wave is dependent on the water. Similarly, all of Jagat, all the Anatma, everything, including our Chitta Hankara, all of that is dependent on the Atma. The Atma is not dependent on them. Atma is an independent existence, and that is the only thing that exists. It's actually very nice. I think maybe when individually we read this one more time, this PDF, where the little bit of more clarity will keep dawning. Regarding chapter 6, the next shloka, is anyone ready with the summary? Anyone wants to share the summary of this verse 33? Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat sthithim sthiram. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, Madhusudana, O slayer of Madhu, Krishna, Tvaya, by you, Samyena, as sameness, Yaha ayam yogaha, this yoga, Proktaha, which was talked about, Etasya, of this, Sthiram, steady, Sthitim, state or vision, Chanchalatvat, due to agitation, Aham, I, na pashyami, do not see. Arjuna said, this yoga that you have talked about as sameness, O Krishna, I do not see its steady vision due to agitation. So I think we will stop here. We will read this up tomorrow, or we will, if anyone of as is ready with the summary, can present this tomorrow, and then we'll take it forward.
Which?
It's chapter 6, verse 33. Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So verse 33 of chapter 6. Okay. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Jai Gurudev.